right, welcome everybody. Happy Saturday. I'm so excited that you guys are joining me on this mini course series. This class I think is going to be the most popular. I've got a lot of Instagram messages from you guys wanting to hear about how to create a hair care line. So I'm about to share my screen with you. If you're just joining, let me know if you can see it. We're going to deep dive into how to start a hair care line and the strategies of what it takes to actually be successful in this space, because this space is a lot more competitive than the other spaces, and sometimes it's harder to break in. Can someone give me a yes that they can see my screen? That would be great. Love to see it. Let me know who's on. I'll give you guys just a second. All right, I think we're ready. Okay, so today we're going to kind of deep dive into hair care, and hair care, like I said, is one of the more competitive spaces. A few years ago, it was kind of wide open, and by a few years ago, I mean like early 2000s, 2006, 7, and 8. But now it's getting a little bit more competitive, especially in the natural hair space. But we're going to talk about different ways that you can innovate and different things that you can do to be successful in this space, okay? And I received a couple questions earlier on Instagram. I'm going to answer those at the end. And if you have Q&A, please go ahead and post them below. So what we're going to cover today is what to expect when you're launching a hair care line, how to innovate in a competitive business. So this business, like I said, is still expanding. There's still room for you, but you still have to be innovative in this space. How to find the right manufacturer for your line and how to get your products created. So if you didn't watch class 1 or 2, I'm going to briefly talk about product development, those sorts of things, but I won't go into it because I went into it deeper in the first course, so you can go back and watch that. A lot of common questions that I get when people are thinking about creating a hair care line in particular is like, I want to start a line someday, but where do I start, right? Because there's a lot of like, just not sure as to what the next steps are, or they're making their products at home, but not sure if they can take it to the marketplace. So we're going to cover those. What are the different methods of getting products made, private label or contract manufacturing, or making products at home? A lot of times in the hair space, people will actually start with making their products at home. And how much will all of this cost you? Let's start in the beginning though. So I think before you really even get into the hair space, or if you're into the hair space, you can probably relate to this. You have to be innovative in this space. And this is not a space that you can just show up with a product and be on top. The competition is fierce. There's a lot of great, particularly women CEOs out there rocking it right now. And you need to be innovative. A lot of ways in the product development side that you can be innovative is with ingredient stories. Yesterday, I gave the example of argan oil with Josie Moran's line, but you can see that in a lot of products nowadays. They will have, like Shea Moisture does that. They'll have a whole pearl line, or they'll have a whole, almond line, or a black castor oil line. So sometimes you need to be innovative with ingredients, but a lot of times in the hair space, that's not enough. You also need to, and it's just, those are the examples I gave, but there's castor oil lines, or apple cider vinegar lines, like there's hair oil blends. You can think about it, in lots of different ways. But you also need to be problem solving in the hair space. So one of the beautiful things about hair is that there's visual problems that you can see, right? So maybe people are losing their edges, or their hair won't grow a certain length, or they have split ends. So when we are creating a hair care line, not only do we want to innovate with ingredients, but we also want to innovate with problem solving as well. You really need to understand, of course, your demographic of this and find it. So let's talk about Mixed Chicks, right? When Mixed Chicks launched way back in the day, they solved an underserved marketplace. They were serving mixed kids, and mixed kids at that time in the early 2000s, there weren't a ton of products out there for mixed hair. There's still really not a ton of products out there for mixed hair. And so you have to kind of find that demographic that is underserved, or that there's space in that category to serve that as well. And the next part of it, when you're looking at being innovative in the hair space, we really want to include the conversation of community building, right? So hair is an interesting community starter point. Women, we judge other women on a couple things, or we like to talk about hair, shoes, and nails, right? That's kind of where we start. And so hair is a common conversation that women have with each other, and having beautiful hair, shiny hair, long hair, strong hair, whatever that language is, you almost want to create a community around your hair business, right? Servicing them. You'll see this a lot in a lot of brands right now. They'll have Facebook groups, they'll have Instagram, sort of parties around it. They really work at building a community around their brand. So those are the things you need to think about before you actually create, or if you have a line, how can you include these innovative steps? What can you include as an ingredient story? What problem are you solving? What demographic is underserved? What community are you building, right? You always have to build community around that. Now, as I said, hair is a visual business, visual, very, very visual business, right? We see our hair, so we have to create graphics and content that is visual. Hair also gives you an opportunity to be on more platforms because, right, we Google, how do you do a French braid? How do you do this? How do you do a silk press? We Google that a lot. We look at YouTube videos. We go to our favorite Instagram channels, our favorite brand ambassadors that have fabulous hair that always show different styles. We go to Pinterest. Many of us start the day out with Pinterest looking for new hairstyles. So again, when you're in that beauty space, you need to think, I'm in a visual business and I need to show quite a bit of content that's visually appealing, right? A lot of how-tos, a lot of best treatment practices, a lot of hairstyles. There's a lot of opportunity in the hair space, in my opinion, to be a detailed visual business, which will attract a bigger audience as well. Everything down from your models, everything down from, you know, the how-tos, those quick looks, those kind of things. Hair is a visual business. Even when you're doing trade shows, before I go on, even when you're doing trade shows, when I go to a lot of the hair shows, what do they always have? They always have people there that are doing demonstrations, which is something that we need to do. So let me take a second to say, hey, you guys, thanks for joining us. I see you guys there. If you have questions, please type them in. I'm going to leave a little time for Q&A, but today's class is a little long because I think hair is an underserved market. It's still competitive, but there's still some niches that are not being served. That I think that if you're considering going into hair, this course is going to help you a lot. Which leads me into my next comment is look for the opportunities and fill that in the marketplace. So let's talk about mixed chicks, right? When we think of mixed people and we think of hair products, mixed chicks is the only product in my mind that comes to my brain like, oh, mixed chicks, they're for mixed people, right? Of course, there's other products out there that will work, but they are like the only specific one in my mind that comes to that area. So think about that when you're looking for the opportunities and looking for the gaps in the marketplace. And a lot of times in the hair space, when you meet women CEOs, they started their business for themselves or their kids. They started their business because they couldn't find a product that worked for themselves, or there wasn't a product that was serving their demographic. So you really want to look at those opportunities and fill that in the marketplace. Some tips of doing this is go back and read the reviews, right? Read the gaps of what people are saying. Read the Instagram reviews and the comments about it. There's a lot of gold inside of there. But definitely when I start building a brand like a hair care line particularly, I look for those opportunities and they're always there. They're always there. There's not a category that I wouldn't say go into. Niche markets. So let's talk about niche markets. So, you know, of course, hair oils, textured hair, all of those kind of things are niche markets in this space. But Madison Reed. So let's talk, if you guys aren't familiar with Madison Reed is probably one of my favorite hair color lines. So I am personally allergic to a ton of stuff, including chemicals, ironically. And Madison Reed it's one of the only PPD-free, gluten-free brands that you can get on-demand hair colors. So they found a really small niche market of consumers that are allergic to PPD, that don't want the chemical treatments on their hair, and they deliver hair color to your house directly. It's a fabulous experience working with them and purchasing from them. And they found a very, very niche market. They've done a lot of great fundraising. They're doing a fabulous job. They're in a lot of Sephora's now, or Ulta's is where I've seen them now. That's again, an opportunity area that they found and built for them. Shea Moisture, when Shea Moisture started, they were one of the few in the marketplace, which is why they were able to dominate for so long. And then they started Madam CJ Walker, right, which is a higher end price point of a product line. It was selling at Sephora's. I didn't see it take off in the marketplace the way that Shea Moisture did, but maybe it was just they didn't message it right, or I have no idea why it didn't work, but that would be my guess. Let's talk about Moroccan hair oil. So you guys remember that craze of Moroccan hair oil a few years ago? It was like, maybe I want to say it peaked in 2012, 13, 14. And everybody was like, I want Moroccan hair oil product. Again, it was just a hair oil with a little bit of Moroccan hair oil in it, and people grabbed it. Same with argan oil. It was the same thing. It was like, it was a phase that people went into and they found that niche. So how can you find niches like that? What are the opportunity areas for your brand? Exotic oils are always going to be a niche product. Hair oils will generally always continue to trend up. A lot of times people will tell a brand story just off of 1 or 2 or 3 ingredients, and a lot of times that'll include a hair oil. So think about the niches and service those. I would build my brand that way. So who knows about Hot Tots? Did you guys watch them on Shark Tank a while ago? They were on Shark Tank like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Time goes so fast now for me. They were on Shark Tank like 4 or 5 years ago, and their whole thing was Hot Tots. They were a brand that was geared towards children and it was a high range brand, getting like their own hair care salon products, and it was amazing. And when I saw it, I thought, who's going to spend that much money on their kids' hair products? And they're doing really well. So you want to make sure that you're looking for those trends and then keeping up with those trends. Dry shampoos, when they came out 10 years ago, nobody had ever heard of it. Then like for 3 or 4 years, they were the thing. Again, staying abreast of the trends and being a leader in that space, especially when you already have a line, you have more opportunity to bring out products quicker and faster. Or the dry bar, which is again another trend. You can go and get your hair blown out very quickly. You want to stay up and abreast of that, especially when you're in the hair care space, because it's just going to continue to get more and more complicated. All right. So if you guys have questions about how to innovate, please post them below. But if not, I'm going to move on to product development side of it. So here's a different way. When I build a hair care line, there's a different model that I use than when I'm building, like, say, a skincare or a makeup line. And really, you want to talk about the big picture of hair when you're building it. You don't want to think about just, I'm going to sell direct to consumers, I'm going to sell to my cousins. You want to think about, like, where's my brand going to be in 3 to 5 years? A lot of the reasons you want to think about that, because most of the time in hair, you're going to saturate online first, and then you're going to go to retail. There's very few examples of where they went straight to retail, unless they have, that's just what they do for a living in terms of a brand development company or a marketing company where they just build brands straight for Sephora or Ulta. There are those kind of businesses, but for everybody watching, more than likely, you're going to go direct to consumers online, you're going to saturate, and then you're going to go retail. But if you're not thinking about retail in the beginning, you're not going to build your brand right. And I have this conversation a lot with my inner circle members about where we have to go back and fix what we started in the beginning so that we can go into retail. That's always usually the next step for successful brands. But you want to really think about, when you're creating your line, who your competitors are, because if your brand in 3 to 5 years is going to be on the shelves of Target, they're going to be sitting next to your competitors, right? They're going to be sitting next to the competitors, and you need to make sure that your products are priced appropriately, that they're packaged appropriately, and that you understand. So I like to have my clients do what we call a competitive matrix, which is basically a fancy term for research on the marketplace. And you want to go find out who your top 3 to 5 competitors are, especially if they're on the shelves, wherever you want to go. And you want to look at their distribution channels. You want to look at their price points, right? Again, this will go back into how you actually create it, because if your top competitors are average price points, retail price points are $10, right? Retail in theory is half, but realistically it's divide that retail price by 7, and that's how you'll get your cost of goods. If you're not priced appropriately or competitively, or have the ability to get priced appropriately or competitively with your current manufacturer, you'll have to start all over again to get to retail. So when we start, in hair particularly, we want to think big picture. Where's my brand going in 3 to 5 years? And some of you maybe not even thinking like, oh, I want to be on the shelves. And for some of you, you don't want to. But if you do, you want to take that extra step. And you want to look at what's their pricing, what's their sizing, what are their ingredient claims, and how is my brand going to compete with that? And what are their distribution channels? Because, and when I talk about distribution channels, I'm talking about where are they selling, right? Are they selling online? Are they selling on Instagram? Are they selling, on Amazon? Are they selling at Sally's? Are they selling at Target? Or are they selling at Walmart? Like, where's their distribution channels? Because if you're going to compete in this business long-term, you'll need to know that. And you'll need to price your products, sizing, ingredients, pricing appropriately. Something we talk a lot about in Inner Circle is how I literally hate supersizing products. I think it's like the worst strategy for brands, but a lot of newbies, when they get started, they will supersize their product thinking they're coming in as a better value. But ultimately what they're going to do is eat their own business up, because their consumers will buy it, but they won't use it as quickly. So definitely think about that. I would recommend that if you're just getting started, and even if you have a brand and retails in your future, to go back and create that competitive matrix, right? To go back and analyze the marketplace and use those demographics that we had discussed. Again, looking for ingredients, packaging size, and retail price. Another thing to do, because this is a visual business, you'll want to go create a Pinterest board to see all your competitors on there. You're looking at packaging, you're looking at overall labeling. Like there's a lot of brands out there that are packaged very similar, and sometimes it's intentional and sometimes it's just they didn't think about it. So you'll want to do that when you're just getting started. Let's talk about the budgets of this. So again, oftentimes you really need 3,000 to 5,000. You can get started with 1,000 to 3,000, but it's going to be less. With hair, I still don't recommend starting with a tremendous amount of products. Most everybody wants to do a 5 SKU line, which will include a hair oil, a serum, a gel, a moisturizer, or leave-in type product, and then a shampoo and conditioner. And I think that's fine, but really you want to learn to cash flow your business when you're getting started. So you'll always want to start with products that have higher margins. And in hair, it's usually some sort of treatment products or a styling product. So like a hair oil or a lotion or a moisturizer or something that they leave in. Those products can usually, they have a better margin that you can usually cash flow your business in, adding the shampoos and the conditioners later on. Unless your market is so niche that shampoo and conditioner makes sense in the beginning. I know there's some categories where, it makes sense in the beginning, but for the most of you guys, I would add shampoo and conditioner last, okay? I would definitely start with a styling agent. I really wouldn't launch more than that until I had success with those, and then I would add on. And it doesn't take long to add on. If you do the steps in the beginning correctly, it doesn't take very long to add on. So let's talk about timelines. How much time is it going to take for you to actually get this developed? So setting deadlines is important just for us to move our goals forward. In general, there's a lot of variables that are out of our control, especially when we work with manufacturers, depending on the type of season and the year that we start. So like if you were to start product development right now, and particularly in a custom line, really good chance you're not going to get out until January or February, just because it's the holiday season for manufacturers. They've got a lot of last calls. As a matter of fact, this week is kind of crazy for manufacturers to get the Black Friday out, and then they get that Black Friday rush out and then go straight into the holidays. So a lot of times new R&D products will get into the queue, but they're not really going to get focused on until the end of the year, beginning of the next year. And so really timeline matters. It's okay if you don't get out like right now, because launching in January can be kind of rough sometimes. So, but as a general rule, product development, 4 to 6 week private label, assuming you have your logos ready, your bottles picked out, those sorts of things. We're going to talk about bottles. And then custom manufacturing, 3 to 6 months. I'm now extending that 6 to 9 months from what I'm seeing right now happening in the marketplace. Let's talk about the different packaging. I should show you guys some things. I was not ready for that, but I think that's what I'm doing now. Okay. All right, y'all. So here we go. Packaging. What do we see most? Jars. We see a lot of jars. We see a lot of jars. We see a lot of tubes in this space. Most of you guys are not ready for tubes, although it would be amazing. Tubes are difficult for startup brands. But the reason tubes are difficult for startup brands is because they're harder to fill. Their minimums are higher. They're 1,000 units usually. So when you see a tube, it's usually with someone that has invested the resources into buying 1,000 units or more. For most of you getting started, you're going to start with stock packaging. You're going to start with Boston Rounds. You're going to start with Imperials. You're going to start with stock bottles, lotions, pumps, those sorts of things. Nothing wrong with that. You're going to start with jars that you can get all day long. Nothing wrong with that. That's what you see on the shelves, going back to our competitive research. But in this hair care business, you don't really want to innovate. You want to think about and look at what your consumers are used to purchasing, the sizes, and how they use a product, right? So occasionally you'll see a gel in a tube. Occasionally you'll see it in a pump, but majority of the time you'll see it in a jar. Same with shampoos and conditioners. When you innovate in those kind of spaces, you have to train your consumers, and that adds an extra step to your business, which we're not down for today. So start with stock packaging all day. There's a lot of different ways you can make stock packaging look very, very different. It's something that we do a lot. In addition to that, you'll want to make sure that, your products, if you're going to be shelf lives, that if they're in a clear container, that they do not separate on the shelves or visually. I really like to put hair products, particularly in a white or an amber or a blue or something other than clear, just so that if there's any separation in the formula, your customers don't see it, okay? Something really to think about, or you like wrap that sucker in a really long label. Anything other than that is just going to be difficult for you in the long run. So labels are what we see a lot of in the hair care space. They're easy, they're fast. Even on tubes, you can put a label on a tube. But again, you still have to invest those minimums. Labels are usually the fastest way for you guys to get started. And of course, don't forget your barcodes and all that good stuff. So that is our course today on how to start. There was a class, a question that someone had for me on Instagram, and I promised her I would answer it. So let me pull that question up. And if you guys have questions as you're just joining, please go ahead and post below. So her question, and I know her Instagram name, but I don't know her first name. So I will just answer her Instagram name. Hold on. Let me make sure you guys can still see me okay. Let me go see. All right, her question was, after choosing the type of products I would like to create, what are the next steps? Private label or creating from scratch, and how can I be prepared as possible to prevent losing money? It's a really good question. So once you choose the type of products that you want to start with, whether you private label or you custom or you make your products at home, the best thing to do to make sure that you don't lose money is to create that audience ahead of time. So yes, when you're ready to go to manufacturing, you'll want to have your artwork done, your barcodes created, all that good stuff. But where people lose the money is that they're not prepared they don't have anyone to sell to. And so if you start in that particular place where you're spending all your time in product development, you're not building that community out, you're not going to make any money in the end. You're going to lose money because you're going to sit on that inventory for a while. So although it may be counterintuitive to hear this, where you really, really want to start is actually in building your audience out, giving high value content in the beginning, making sure that you're servicing them, answering their questions, kind of prepping them for what you want to do. Another advantage of building out your content and your audience prior to launching, right, is that you get to see what they really want. And that's super important. If you don't understand what your consumers want, or just assuming, you'll build products that nobody purchases. So one of the best things and the best way to ensure that you don't lose money is to build an audience prior to launching. So really good question. Hope that's helpful. Let me see if there's any other questions that came on. And thank you guys for hanging out with me on a Saturday. It is cold and rainy here. It went from like 80 yesterday to 50 today, which is in Texas world like a nightmare. I'm not used to cold weather, but let's see if there's any other questions. Let's see here. All right, I don't see any other questions. So, oh, I did not speak about insurance. Okay, Asia, good question. Asia said, I'm sorry I missed a portion, but did you speak about insurance? Let's talk about insurance. So there's a couple different ways you can get insurance. Your manufacturer may cover you under their liability policy. Most don't any longer, but at a certain level, like in terms of purchasing, they will. So I would first ask my manufacturer if they'll cover you under their policy under a rider. If they don't, I would contact Veracity. It's VERACITY. You only need $1 million policy just to get started if you're selling direct to consumers. But if you're going to sell like Target or Sally's, their needs may be different. So just start with $1 million policy, go to Veracity, and they'll help you. But first ask your manufacturer if they cover you under their thing. But if you're making your products at home, then if you're making your products at home, what I would recommend doing is joining the Indie Business Network, because Donna Maria has a really good insurance policy for hand makers and homemakers. Chanel says, trying to find our niche. Our first products is a hair growth oil formulated by my 12-year-old daughter. That is very cool. I love that. I think Angela posted some article today in the Inner Circle. Chanel, I think you're in there, about opportunities for Ulta and children. So that might be a good thing for her. So I have a 13-year-old, and she spends a lot of time on her hair. And the thing that we talk a lot about is hair growth and hair regrowth, because we wear a lot of ponytails. She's an athlete. She does a lot of sports. And so she's always, worried about her edges and those sorts of things. So I think that there's a big community probably of girls her age that care about those things. So in your daughter's case, I would probably start on Instagram. If your daughter's on Instagram, you can, of course, run the page and maybe feature hairstyles for children, preteens and teens in that demographic. That's a fabulous niche. Your daughter as a founder is a really good story. And I think that's a good opportunity for you guys. So I would start with a hair oil, and I may start with like some kind of leave-in moisturizer that they can use as well, and possibly even a gel. And if your daughter's like my daughter is obsessed with edges. Like, she kind of yelled at me for not doing my edges. And I was like, we called that baby hair when I was a kid. so good idea. B says, did you go over how to choose manufacturers? So I did not really go deep dive into manufacturing Be guessing you're going to the natural hair care market. There is a handful of manufacturers in that natural hair care market, so you have to be careful who you work with. I think it's kind of a fishbowl right now, personally, but you can Google, private label hair care, private label, whatever you're looking for, hair oil, and see what comes up. I also have a vendor guide, which we'll post later below. Just look for someone that has a product that you like and that you can communicate well with. And I personally would look for someone that's not making all your competitors' products as well. Hey, Alexis. Alexis says, when you say saturate e-commerce sales, what is your definition of saturation? How do you know when you saturate the web dollar amount? Yes, yes, yes. So I think we talked about this quite a bit, Alexis, the other day. You're not at saturation when you're doing 600, 60, 100, $200,000 a month. I think then you've hit saturation, but you've not hit it yet, right? So I don't even think you have a lot of ads running. I mean, Alexis has been able to very successfully build her brand with very little ad spend and those sorts of things. So when you start hitting that $60, $100, $200,000 a month, then I feel that you've saturated, and then I feel like you're ready for retail. So the thing about going to retail is that you have to put a lot of product out front. Your margins are in half. You've got to sometimes carry those POs for 30, 45, 60, 90 days. And that's a lot for a lot of startups. So for you, Alexis, I say keep going with your internet, like deep dive into it to where you're getting that. When you start consistently hitting $40,000 a month in sales, Alexis, that's when I want to say to you, okay, let's look at retail. All right. Hi, Diana. Chanel said, can you repeat the information about the insurance? Yes. So again, insurance is if your manufacturer covers you, ask them first. If not, go to Veracity. That's Veracity. Inside the inner circle, Chanel, I think we had a conversation about insurance, and there was a couple resources people had listed as well. And Chanel said, yes, edges is important to her. Yeah. So, right. So maybe have her friends over and ask them what's important to them. Like my daughter, it's edges, it's growth, right? She wants to growth. It's braids, like easy braid styles. It's sportswear. So like, cause she's an athlete, she often wants her hair straight or curly style, but she's tired of wearing buns because she's always doing sports. Myself included, I'm always active. So it's like, I never do my hair. But so just finding those things that you really speak to that. My daughter, I don't know about your daughter, she wears a lot of headbands, maybe crafting a headband that's athletic wear for them. I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities for your daughter. Yeah, Gwen, that's how I feel like saturation is. I don't feel like most brands dig deep enough into the web before they go to retail. And I think that retail is good opportunity if you can handle it. But a lot of people don't have the sales revenue before they go, and they can't sustain those POs. They just can't. Chanel says Alexis's brand is amazing, and Alexis has built that using these basic same strategies. She innovated in the marketplace. She found an underserved market. She gave high value content. The way I met Alexis, I met her on Instagram, and I was following her, not knowing, because I have 3 girls, or my 2 daughters and myself. We have a lot of hair in our house, and it was like, did you know you should brush with this kind of, did you know? And she gave that high value content for a really, really long time. And she served a marketplace that, even though I don't have 4C hair, my 2 daughters do. So for me, it was really important. It's like I was learning from her first, and now we use her products. Yeah. Oh, Alexis and Gwen, you guys have to meet. I think Alexis is coming to the TSP event, so in January, so that'll be fun. You guys can meet in person. She's dope. Both of you guys are really cool. All right, so good questions. Great questions. I hope you guys all know that there's room in the marketplace for everybody, and I'm sure that Gwen can speak to this too, because she's been in this space for a long time, that there's room in the marketplace. Like, we each carve out our own space. We each service a different market, and there's no space that we can be here that can be, not access for other people. Like, it's, what's the saying? It's not competition. What's to say? Collaboration, not competition. That's what everybody says. So yeah, so good stuff. All right, guys, thank you guys for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will be here tomorrow again at noon. And we are going to be talking, I'm not sure, makeup. We're talking about makeup tomorrow. We actually have 15 mini courses scheduled. I haven't told you guys that. I'm only doing 5 at a time. but we have 15 mini courses scheduled. So tomorrow is makeup. So we'll talk to you guys later. If you have more questions, tag me and I'll come back and answer. Bye-bye.